Hi, good evening and welcome back to today's daily newspaper analysis. Today is the 30th of April 2026 and let's get on with it. So today is a relatively light news day. The first story we have here on the screen relates to an order issued by the Supreme Court. Basically, what had happened is that there were public interest litigations asking the Supreme Court to issue guidelines relating to hate speech. The petitioners said that there had been a rise in hate speech in India over the last several years, and they were requesting the Supreme Court to issue guidelines in order to curb hate speech. So, what the Supreme Court did is it refused to issue any guidelines, saying that the existing laws on hate speech are already there in the criminal codes of the country, in the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita and under other penal laws. Okay, so the Supreme Court refused to interfere. It said that a new set of guidelines is not required. Okay, so please keep that in mind. However, the Supreme Court specifically flagged that the Parliament could consider any amendments as recommended by a particular Law Commission of India report. Okay, so I'm going to flag that for you. As you can see from this headline, the court said that there are adequate provisions in law to deal with hate speeches. Okay, and so the court refused to issue any new guidelines on the same. If you see here, the court mentioned that it is up to Parliament to decide if it wants to bring legislative changes as proposed by the Law Commission of India in its 267th report. Okay, so keep in mind that the 267th report of the Law Commission of India relates to suggested amendments in the laws relating to hate speech. Okay, so keep that in mind. Of course, related homework for you. Who is the chair of the Law Commission of India? That is something you have to find out as homework. Second question on law commissions can be, who was the first chair of the Law Commission ever? It was Lord Macaulay in the British era. Another question can be, who was the first chair of the Law Commission after independence? The answer to that will be M.C. Seetalwar or Motilal Chimanlal Seetalwar. Okay, so please keep those points in mind. Remember, the Law Commission of India is not a constitutional body. It's not a statutory body. It is simply established by government notification from time to time for a term of 3 years. Homework for you is to find out the current chair. How does it relate to hate speeches? The Supreme Court flagged that it is open to Parliament to make changes as suggested by the 267th report of the Law Commission of India. Okay, I hope that is clear. Moving forward, now we don't really have to get into the nitty-gritties of this case. There's an existing case going on in the Allahabad High Court. So we are not concerned with the technicalities of that case. I simply flagged this news story for you to discuss quickly the NHRC. So the NHRC is the National Human Rights Commission. It is a statutory body established by the Protection of Human Rights Act 1993. Okay, and this is a body statutorily charged with conducting investigations into human rights violations across the country. Okay, here of course it is being criticized by a High Court judge of the Allahabad High Court, Justice Atul Sridharan. Okay, but the specifics of that story are not relevant as of now. We are mainly concerned with the NHRC. Once again, two pieces of homework for you. Who was the first chairman of National Human Rights Commission and who is the current chair of the National Human Rights Commission? These are 2 points which you have to look into and get the answers. Okay, if you know the answers already, you should post them down in the comments. Okay, Remember, it's a statutory body. You have to know the first chair, the current chair, created under the Protection of Human Rights Act, 1993. Moving forward, an editorial by Shashi Tharoor in the Hindu today, saying that the war on Iran and the Gulf's shattered illusion. Now, when he says the Gulfs, he is obviously referring to a group, the Gulf countries, right? These are the countries which are in and around the Persian Gulf, including countries like Iraq, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and so on and so forth. Okay, it is a subset of the area we broadly refer to as West Asia or Middle East. The word Gulf or Gulf countries means we are talking about those countries which are in and around the Persian Gulf. So Shashi Tharoor talks about the shattered illusions of the Gulf. Why does he say so? Because the Gulf countries have tried over the years to portray themselves, especially the UAE, right, Dubai and Abu Dhabi, as places where the rich and powerful of the world can come, live, work, have amenities commensurate to their status, right? So that is why they speak of shattered illusions. How will, what Shashi Tharoor is asking is, how will the war in Iran and the attacks on the Gulf countries by Iran in retaliation for the US and Israeli attack on Iran, how will it impact the prosperous illusion that has been set up by the Gulf nation? Okay, related homework for you to find out is to know a little bit about the GCC or the Gulf Cooperation Council. What I want you to find out is which are the countries in the GCC and where is it headquartered. Okay, as you all know, this has become significant in context of the Iran war, because the US and Israel attacked Iran. Of course, the US has military bases in many of the Gulf nations, and so in retaliation, Iran attacked the military bases of the US in these Gulf nations and other targets in these nations as well. Okay, so that is why they speak, or Shashi Tharoor speaks of the shattered illusions. All right. Okay. Moving forward, next let's speak about, this is an editorial in the Hindu today, speaking of the India-New Zealand Free Trade Agreement. Okay. So remember, there has been a series of free trade agreements. This year, the most important one has been the mother of all deals between the European Union and India. Now remember, the New Zealand one has come in the news, but it is going to be signed soon. Okay, so this is the free trade agreement between India and New Zealand. Okay, it was signed on Monday, and what this editorial argues is that it is compounding gains, meaning the structure being created by the Indian government by signing these several different free trade agreements, they compound the gains, they build upon each other to increase the overall gains for the country. Okay. Moving forward, an interesting article in the Hindu today speaking of the creamy layer debate. So mainly I wanted to flag this article specifically to discuss this word creamy layer. Okay. Now creamy layer is a debate, or creamy layer is a phrase that is relevant in context of the reservation policy in India. The idea of creamy layer is that all the people of a certain class or group will not get reservation. Rather, the people who are already doing well within a group, or the creamy layer within a group, will not be entitled to reservation. Okay. For example, this is applied in context of other backward classes or socially and educationally backward classes of citizens. Okay. So in OBC reservation, the creamy layer is applicable. creamy layer on the basis of income and other criteria. The point is, suppose you belong to another backward class, but you and your family are doing well economically or by other metrics of land ownership, etc., then even though you are from another backward class, you may not be entitled to the reservation. Okay, this is the concept of creamy layer. Okay, that within a reserved category, the creamy layer or the top echelons of the reserved category will not be entitled. Okay, till now in India, creamy layer concept or creamy layer doctrine only applies to other backward classes or socially and educationally backward classes of citizens reservation. Okay, so here they talk about it as a debate. There has been a long-standing debate on whether the creamy layer theory should be applied to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe reservation as well. So this article talks about this same conflict. In fact, there are petitions in the Supreme Court asking for the creamy layer to be applied to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe reservation as well. As of now, it is not applicable. There has been a judgment of the court indicating that the idea of creamy layer can be applied to SC/ST reservations, but this is not a reality in India as of now. Mainly, I wanted to flag this article to discuss the concept of a creamy layer. The next article we see here is a bilateral exercise between India and Sri Lanka. So as you can tell, this is a diving exercise. What is the name of this exercise? It is called India Sri Lanka DiveX 2026. So India Sri Lanka DiveX 2026 or the India Sri Lanka diving exercise 2026. It took place in Colombo. India sent its ship INS Nirikshak, right? And this exercise was concluded. Related things which you have to find out on your own are what are the other military exercises that are conducted between India and Sri Lanka. All right. So please keep this one in mind. The name of the exercise is DiveX. All right. Moving forward. Now, let's have a look at this. This is an article today. It's still a proposal stage, but the government is proposing E100 as an approved fuel. Now, when they say E100, whenever you see names like this, E10, E20, E100, we are talking about ethanol. Okay, we are talking about ethanol, which is considered to be a type of substitute fuel to petrol. Okay, now when they say E100, right, E100 means 100% ethanol. This is still a proposal, it is quite radical. As of today, it works in increments, that is E10 or E20. The idea being 20% ethanol, 80% petrol. Okay, so this is a proposal to establish E100 or 100% ethanol as an approved fuel. Okay, now of course this is not so simple. It also requires that the machinery or the technology of the cars and automobiles that we use should be of such a level that it is able to withstand E100 fuel, right? It should not be that cars which are meant for petrol fuel are running on E100 fuel, because then the gains made from using ethanol will be absolutely destroyed. Okay, so these are things to be seen. As of today, it is in a proposal stage. The government has issued a draft notification, right, for comments about approving E100 as a fuel. Okay. On the Iran front, things are relatively quiet. That is not to say things are not happening, but but things which you have to remember for CLAT are not happening. Okay, so there are statements by Trump, in response statements by Iran. There is a flurry of proposals. Iran has given some proposals saying what it would need before it opens the Strait of Hormuz, and so on and so forth. What Iran is saying as of now is, let's leave aside the nuclear part of it. Let's sit down and negotiate on the remaining aspects. Okay, so nothing much which you have to remember as of today. Okay, just Trump saying you should sign a deal or else we'll attack. Iran sticking to its stand. In the meanwhile, even as there is an ongoing ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon, Israeli strikes at Lebanon continue apace. Okay, this is of course tragic and disastrous. Hundreds and even thousands of people have been killed in Lebanon due to the Israeli invasion and occupation. All right. As of today, yes, there were Washington talks. They were historic, directly between Lebanon and Israel. They did agree to a ceasefire, and yet the fighting goes on. Now, this is something over the last few days, and Ananya ma'am has already discussed it. As you know, the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, has exited OPEC. Okay, has exited the OPEC grouping. All right. Obviously, the OPEC grouping is going to be significant and important this year. It is the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. Okay. Now, what you have to keep in mind is what really is OPEC. Okay. Remember, OPEC is basically an oil cartel. Okay. OPEC is essentially an oil cartel, meaning the countries which export petroleum and crude oil, they get together to decide how much are we going to produce. And what does this do? If you control the supply, if you decide from time to time whether to increase or decrease the supply, you basically have almost total control on the price at which it will get sold in the market. So the point of OPEC and OPEC Plus is that they are oil cartels deciding together upon production and supply of crude oil as well as petroleum. And by controlling supply, they are able to impact the price. Okay, so that is the whole point of OPEC and OPEC Plus. UAE, which has suffered severe damage because of Iranian counterattacks, has left OPEC. That is to say, it is saying that we will produce as we decide, not in a group as a cartel. If we want to produce more, sell more, earn more profit, we will decide that. We will not coordinate with other oil exporting countries. So they have left the cartel and decided that they are going to decide on their own. Okay. Last point here, Vikram VT-21. Okay. What is Vikram VT-21? This is something, this is an infantry combat vehicle. You can see a picture of it here. It is an infantry combat vehicle produced by the Defense Research and Development Organization. Okay. So the DRDO has launched the Vikram VT-21 as an ICV or an infantry combat vehicle. Okay, so just keep this in mind, and DRDO is pitching it as a mainstream option for the armed forces. Let's see if it is taken up. For now, we should remember who is producing it. DRDO, what is its name? Vikram VT-21. What is it? An ICV, that is infantry combat vehicle. Okay, so that is all for today. Let's pause here. Do check out the things I have mentioned throughout the presentation today, things which are your homework. Please find those out. It's good to build a decent level of curiosity. It helps you stay up to date with current affairs and GK for Clat. It's been nice to meet you here this evening. I shall see you all soon in the next couple of days. Good evening and goodbye.